Hey, it's Ken Lewis. Welcome to Q&A with Ken, your twice weekly broadcast during the quarantine, coming to you every Sunday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. New York City time, broadcasting from ground zero of the COVID-19 outbreak in America. Yeah, it's kind of dangerous around here. I'm staying inside. So if you don't know me, I'm Ken Lewis. I'm accredited on 99 gold records, 57 Grammy nominations, as a producer, mixer, songwriter, arranger, musician, vocalist. I've done a lot of things. Lately I've been working on BTS. I just mixed 3 songs on the new album, including the first single they put out. So that's always a high honor. I think I got about 30 BTS mixes now. Sang on the Taylor Swift album, Lover. I sang on a song called False God. Mixed BTS Juice WRLD, Harlord, Des Rocks. Been producing Des Rocks, helped out Mark Ronson on some records. So a lot of good records in the mix. So anyway, while we're still inside, I wanted to give back some of my time and knowledge to, the studio community and the people who have always supported me. So maybe I can help you guys sidestep some real studio problems you're having. So stick around, ask your questions on the chat roll. Man, I got absolutely bombarded with great questions pre-submitted for the show. I'm going to get through as many of those as I possibly can. So in the meantime, this is a brand new broadcast, so please tell your friends. Please subscribe to the YouTube page. And let's quarantine the studio together. Or the reverse of that, whatever that is. So also, if I can get to 1,000 subscribers, which I'm healthily on my way to, I think we get more features on the webcasting stuff that I want to broadcast with. So there might be other good things in there for us. So on this broadcast, I'm going to be doing mostly Q&A. I'm going to start with Q&A in a couple minutes. I'm going to do, I think, 15 minutes of Q&A. Then I'm going to show you some top secret plugin stuff. I'm going to show you what I would call the missing reverb link plugins, and then I'm going to do more Q&A. I think the first Q&A segment is going to be mostly gear, and the second Q&A segment is going to be mostly creative. And then the third Q&A segment, I'm going to do Storytime with Ken. I'm going to tell you guys Public Enemy, Aretha Franklin stories, 4 of the craziest days of my young life. In my earlier days in New York City as a freelancer. Then I'm going to do a lightning round of Q&A. And then I'm going to do a sprint mix of, I think it's Gringo the MC, a song called Northside. It's a rapper out of close to Houston, Texas, I think Conroe. It was engineered by Chris Howard at, what is it? Wave House Studios? Yeah, I think it's Wave House. Anyway, I'm going to finish the night with a sprint mix, so there's a lot on board. I'm going to get straight into... Well, before I get into Q&A, let me just talk about COVID-19 for a second. I hope you are all sequestered and making great use of this time. What a gift for us creative people to have an excuse to stay indoors and just make music nonstop. So, I pretty much work 7 days a week. I don't go out much anyway. The quarantine hasn't really changed too much of what I do. Let me know on the chat roll how it's changed for you guys. If you're feeling more creative, if you're feeling more anxiety, let me know who's out there. Speaking of chat roll, oh man, we got a bunch of people on tonight. Kahari Mays, hey, Mike Heebs, I'm going to answer one of your questions tonight. I think I saw it submitted earlier. Gringo the MC, of course, I see you. Ricky Adams, Chris Howard, Kev J. I think I'm getting to a Kev J question tonight. I think I saw you submit one earlier, so I'm going to try and get to that one. Let me get right into Q&A. I've kind of had to print these out. I had so many questions. So I'm definitely not going to get to everybody's questions tonight. Very sorry about that. But man, I just got a slew of them and really didn't have a ton of time to organize them and show you the best shit. Okay. Question 1 from Stan Stees. Hey Ken, I'm a hip-hop producer and I produce 100% in the box. I'm thinking about investing in an analog summing box. What are your thoughts about those? Do they really add that 3D-ishness to the sound that all the people who grew up producing with analog gear are romanticizing about? Thanks and greetings from Berlin. Stan, I got a ton of these types of questions, so I'm going to kind of lump a whole bunch of questions that I got tonight about the difference between analog and digital, hybrid setups, how do they work, how do they not work, etc. So that's one of the ones I'm going to tackle, but I think in answering that, I'm just going to talk about the whole analog digital hybrid, which is going to answer probably 6 or 7 of the questions that I got in from various people tonight. Before I would add an analog summing to your setup, make sure that you have great converters and great speakers, because the summing it definitely helps. Summing definitely gives you a bit more width and depth and whatever this 3D thing is. But if you don't have good converters and good speakers, you're not hearing that. And step 1 is to make sure that you know what's coming out of your speakers correctly. And then, when you add that summing box. So for me, I started my career mixing on, 15-foot long Neves and SSLs. And then digital started, shrinking down to home use level. I think around 2000 was when I started offering online mixing for anybody around the world that wanted it via internet. And so I started mixing at home, but I didn't want to mix in the box. It just wasn't in my nature. So I started with analog summing. I did some complete in the box mixing. I won a Grammy doing it. Won 2 Grammys doing it. CC Winans, Pray. Yeah, I mixed a single called CC Winans, Pray. And I mixed that completely in the box. And that song won 2 Grammy Awards. So yes, you can mix amazing stuff in the box. And that was, my God, that was 2000, 2005. And the technology has gotten so much better now. So I think to answer a whole lot of people's questions, yes, it's absolutely, completely possible to do amazing mixes completely in the box. What is my preference? My preference is a hybrid setup of an analog console. So every single track leaves Pro Tools, goes through the analog circuits of the console into the channels and faders and pan pots and EQs and everything. And then I have 2 mix buses on the SSL. And usually I just use 1 mix bus, but if I want to treat a separate mix bus differently, I can feed out a separate mix bus. And if you see, I don't know if you can see from above, some of these channels have a green and a red. I have these on both mix buses. So anyway, I found the difference in how much quality I got from moving from in the box to better converters and summing was a really big difference. And to the extent that Brent, my production partner Brent, originally didn't make the move, he just stayed in the box. And then one day I sat him down and I played him the mixes that were being done in the summing, and he was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, I got to do summing. And then I found the same leap forward from summing back to a full console again, was like just as much of a leap forward. So the great thing about mixing on a console is it's kind of like cheating, because everything just comes up sounding better to begin with if you have a great console. And I have an SSL AWS 900 Plus, which is just a workhorse and sounds amazing. Summing, yeah, I think you can do. Thoughts on Apollo Twin? Mike Heaves with the follow-up question. I have an Apollo Twin. I love it. I take that thing everywhere. it's been on 4 continents with me now. It just went to Tokyo with me. I was sitting in an SSL room and I didn't use their computer or their interface. I used my Apollo Twin and my Cylinder Mac, and that's it. So yeah, I think the Twin is a great portable interface, and if you load it with plugins, then you have like everything you need to make a record on the road. It's really incredible. Let's see. So if you have any more specific questions about analog, digital, summing, that kind of stuff, light them up on the chat roll and I'll try and get to them tonight. But, well, I guess I talked about mine. So I think I have solved the analog digital equation. It's not which one is better at all, because you can do phenomenal work on both. It's which one you do better work on. I was basically born and raised in studios with 15-foot long SSLs. This is my comfort zone. This is how I learn. This is where I feel the most creative. It's a much more tactile response for me to be able to reach out and touch faders and EQs and things like this than it is for me to sit here with a mouse and click and drag, and it's much more eyeballs affecting your brain than it is ears affecting your brain, or it's too much eyeballs affecting your brain. Would I recommend an SSL Sigma? I've never used one. I mean, SSL makes great stuff, clearly. The thing that really interests me that I haven't seen yet, but I want to get my hands on, is one of those little SSL desktop volume knobs, like little interfaces. I think they're like $250, and for SSL quality, and I hear they're great. I think for people who are looking for, one of those just kind of, things to power your speakers, that could be a really cool SSL thing. The Sigma, I don't really know all the other lines. The Origin, I just don't keep up with gear like that anymore. Let's see. Who else do we got from... I'm combining all of these questions too. Let's see. Ernie G, favorite go-to plugins. Daryl Freeman, what is the best plugin chain? What order do you place them in and why? Doesn't really work like that. I'll address that. Ibrahim, what is the best studio interface and best new plugin? Thank you, from France. Bonjour. Bonsoir. And Ace, I've been a big fan, crazy. What are your top 5 plugins? Okay, so I narrowed it down to basically what are my top 3 EQs that I'm really liking nowadays. And for me, they are my old standby. I just can never get enough of this. The BX Digital V3. Let me see if I can... You can do some really trippy things with the BX Digital. Usually it lives on my mix bus, just to give it a little bit of width. The only thing I do on the mix bus is I take that and I usually put it to about 112 or 113, and that's about all the width that I need on the mix bus. And then I'll use it on individual channels a lot to kind of carve out space. Sometimes I'll carve out the middle of a stereo thing like a piano. That's a bit extreme, but I may carve out the middle of a piano, for instance, and leave room in the middle for the vocal, and then I may find a side frequency that complements the piano and boost that. So this is a MSEQ, sorry for those that don't know. Mono section, that affects only what's in the middle. Stereo section affects only what's on the sides. So anything I do here is going to only affect what I do here. So if I'm dialing this out, that's getting rid of the middle of the stereo field of, say, the piano that I have. Whereas this is boosting only that frequency band on the side. So you can really tailor how wide you want something outside the speakers or how narrow you want to pull it in, and you can really carve out the middle of mid-range to leave room for the lead vocal. Number 2 on the list is, I kind of debated with the UAD stuff. I mean, there has to be at least one, right? So the super honorable mention that gets a ton of use is the UAD Manly Massive Passive. It's absolutely superb. But I have to say my favorite is the UAD Pultec Pro Legacy. And one of the reasons when they modeled the Legacy, they modeled the little bump that happens when you insert it. Before you plug in any of the knobs, it gives you this little mid-range bump. So I like that about it. But when people talk about three-dimensional EQ, whatever that is, whatever they mean, I usually think that's complete bullshit. Until I heard this thing, and there's things about this thing that make the sound just move around my speakers and add this depth that I don't get from other equalizers the same way. Yeah, I love that one. Okay, and my third, what did I have for the third? Oh yeah, the virtual mix rack. I mean, geez, how can you go wrong with this thing? I think, and within the virtual mix rack, I would probably say my favorite, if I had to choose, is this FGN. It's my favorite Neve modeler. I don't really reach for Neve modelers much, but because this kind of came loaded when you load the plugin in, I just started using it, and I was like, damn, this is like a super musical plugin. So I have found it to be super musical. I use it on vocals, on guitars, I'm not afraid to grab this particular one for nearly anything. And it's got a really nice low frequency filter section as well. So. So, favorite plugins, those are 3 of my favorite EQs currently running. I don't really, I go through these phases with different plugins that I like and that are my favorites and that get used. Same with certain reverbs or things. I find myself sometimes leaning more towards FabFilter R reverb, and sometimes more towards UAD chambers, the capital chambers, or sometimes more towards Waves H verb. There's all these things that I may go 4 or 5 mixes and use FabFilter R on the lead vocal, and then I'll just change up and I'll use something else. And I try to be only what the mix needs, but it doesn't always work out that way because you just get your favorites. Okay, so more questions. Let's see. Paul Pereira? Sorry, Paul Pereira? I can't. What are good, flat, not muddy mixing headphones for a home studio hobbyist? And our home studio is going to be the new norm because of COVID-19. Well, yes, on that one for nearly certain. My favorite kind of budget-ish headphones are these Audio-Technica, the 50s, MTH 50s or MX 50s or something. They're not the newer ones. The 50Xs, the new ones, man, they brighten those things up and they're super overhyped and they're just not very cool. They're the ones I don't like are the ones with the detachable cord. These are older. They're really hard to find. My friend Alex Neat recommended these to me, and he was absolutely right. They carry great sub bass, which is really the thing. For 808s at a reasonable price, I think I paid like $100, $150 for these. The Audio-Technica, I think it's like MTH 50s, not 50Xs. Don't get the 50Xs. And then my other favorite pair of headphones are these Audis LCD XCs, which are these. It looks like you have two gigantic speakers on your head. But they sound unlike anything else, and it really just sounds like you have two speakers on your head and not a pair of headphones. They're just incredible. Maybe I'll show those next week. So there's a couple good, and the Audis are like $1,300, but I mean, if you travel a lot and you have to mix and you have to really, really rely on your headphones to mix, man, those Audis are spot on, worth the investment. All right, Aaron asks, balance or level setting is arguably the mixing part of mixing, but nowhere have I seen any of you masters discuss your philosophy and techniques regarding level setting or balancing. Where do you set your first instrument level-wise? Do you use metering to set your gain structure for the mix? Do you always set the low end? Okay, you guys get it. So that's a lot of questions, but I think I'll just generally philosophically answer it if I can. When I start a mix, in order to preserve headroom, I start my mix with my SSL volume, my overall volume that goes to the speakers. It doesn't affect anything happening in the DAW itself, only the volume that's feeding out to the speakers. I start that shit on 11, and the SSL actually goes to 11. And what that does for me is when I start pulling up individual tracks, like I have them rolling right now, then I don't need to pull them up nearly as much in order to get something really loud in the speakers. And for you, because my mix bus will be so low, you won't hear it. But for me here, this is going to be loud.
Just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be.
Okay, I don't know how low that was in the broadcast. I suspect that was pretty darn low. Here's the beauty of that. The beauty of that is coming out of my speakers, that was pumping. I mean, the kick was hitting me hard in the chest. The 808 was rumbling the room. And that's all because I'm just feeding a ton of volume into the speakers. So I'm pulling up my faders much lower to get the same result early on. Preserves my headroom in my mix bus, gives me tons of room to work. Because, you know, especially as a young mixer, one of the challenges of a young mixer is you're constantly rebalancing things. You're second guessing, you're rebalancing, and all of a sudden your faders that started low are just going up and up and up and up and up. And then, you know, by 3/4 of the way through your mix, they're slammed, and you can't, you know, you're kind of backed into a corner, and what do you do? So if you start with the volume super loud, you can, you know, keep your mix. I probably have at any given time a minimum of 10 dB of headroom on my mix bus while I'm mixing until I start adding, which is another, I've gotten a ton of questions tonight about mix bus compression and things like that. Usually I'll add mix bus compression around 50 to 80% in. So I want to switch up Q&A right now, and I want to show you guys the missing link in the reverb world, in my opinion, that finally got solved in a really good way. Chambers. Chambers always seem to be that kind of overlooked thing, that there was a few choices out there, but there weren't some like really super fantastic choices. Or, you know, there was something like Altiverb that had a few really dope chambers, but that was about it. Lexicon had, you know, their PCM chambers that are all good. So what I did, the one that I really feel solved everything was the UAD capital chambers. I mean, so let's talk about chambers for a second, because if you can see on the screen, this is a really great way to envision what a chamber actually is. It is actually physically a room, usually concrete, and usually the only things that are in it are a pair of speakers and a pair of microphones. And the idea is to make it super reflective and pump the sound in and let it bounce around, and then the microphones capture the bounced around sound, and that's your chamber. So it's really similar to a plate, in that the idea behind a plate is you feed you feed the signal into that plate, and then the vibrations that are caused from the plate are picked up by microphones or whatever and fed back as reverb. Same with springs, they all kind of work the same way. So this is like a giant version of a plate, is maybe the way you could imagine a chamber. And usually chambers are a lot more reverberant and bouncy than like halls. Halls tend to be a bit darker. Chambers tend to be a bit more solid in carrying the sound with them. So like a hall will really disperse nicely, and you'll get that beautiful kind of sinking dark reverb. And chambers and plates and stuff usually tend to stand up in your mix a little bit better, and depending on what you choose and how you use it. But they have a little bit more staying power, a little density. So I'm going to show you on the lead vocal here.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide.
So I have 4 different chambers set up. First one is going to be this UAD capital chamber. Then I'm going to go Abbey Road chambers. Then I'm going to go Altiverb Stone Room. So I got to give a shout out to the one of my favorite studios on earth closed. The Tracking Room in Nashville, which I've worked out of a bunch of times, and this is the Stone Room from the Tracking Room in Nashville, which is like the god of all rooms. It's just incredible cutting drums in there. So that's going to be the third one, and then the fourth one is just going to be a straight Lexicon chamber. And so I'll let you hear all of these and the different sounds of the chambers by themselves, and then I'll let you hear them in the mix. I've kind of volume matched them as much as I can.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. I'm
really like that one too. Third one is the Altiverb.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like.
Fourth is Lexicon. Then I'll just do them all right in a row.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick.
So, you can kind of envision it like the sound of a parking garage or something like that, only the sound of the best parking garage you've been in. So here's all 4 of them just back to back, now that you know what order they're in.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide.
And now in the full mix.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't.
So, there's always these questions like, well, which chamber should I use? Like, that's going to be different for every mix. And even if you should use a chamber or not, as you learn the general sound characteristics of all of these different reverb types, then you can kind of much better pick which ones you want. And if you want like a bright short chamber or a long dark chamber, or you just got to kind of envision what you want and then pick the best tool for the mission. Someone's asking on the chat roll, can you show us how you got those vocals like that? Sure, I can. Okay, I'll just loop this, and I'll try and talk as little as possible.
I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on.
Okay, so first thing you need to know is these 3 lead vocals, boom, all of these, go feed this lead vocal aux. It's mono aux. So because they're all basically recorded on the same microphone at the same level, so I don't need to do everything on the individual channels. I can treat some of them globally. But this one, I'll just loop and show you what I'm doing. So you see all of these in the chain. And then these get bussed to this bus, to this aux. And when I go massive, passive, 2 de-essers, and then 3 different things. So I'll loop it and I'll go through each thing and show you. All right.
I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know.
It's really just somebody asked a pre-submitted question. What frequencies do I look for when I feel like the vocal is too harsh? What do I go after? Here's a good assessment of that. 4.8K, real tight notch, few dB out, and 3.9K, real tight notch. Those mid-range frequencies, sometimes you get these microphones that are just a little too spitty, or vocalist is just really centered in that frequency, and sometimes if you pull a little bit of that out, only if it's bothering you. These 2 frequencies clearly bothered me. So next,
I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size and.
This de-esser is getting the she know I like a slim thick. Those it's all of that. Like you see where I have the de-esser centered, 3.9K basically, right in those harsh. So this one's just dipping out a little bit of those early 2 over the top mid-rangey things.
I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big.
Then what did I do with this? Oh. Okay, just these 3. So I think I added a little bit of bottom on, you can't really see this whole thing. I added a little bit of bottom around maybe 350 with the SSL EQ. The monster compressor on the Slate VMR, I love. This thing is kind of severe, but it does some really cool stuff, and it just sounds smooth on this one, even though it should sound super severe. And then this one, I can't even see. I probably just left this in the chain accidentally. So.
I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick.
So that compressor is really holding things in line. And this takes that and kind of smooths it out even further.
I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty.
More de-essing, because the more compression you add, the more harsh those S's tend to come out. This is going to be a high frequency de-esser, grabbing everything above 6.8.
I'm posted on the Northside, so come. I'm posted on the Northside, so come slide. I'm posted on the Northside.
And then the whole thing gets routed to this aux, and the first thing it hits is this manly. And with the manly, it looks like I'm reboosting. So here's what I did. I notched out the worst offenders in the mid-range, and then I took the manly and added more of a global sheen back a little bit to those frequencies, so I don't really lose what that frequency range does to the voice, which is really nice. That's all the clarity and enunciation. You just don't want the harshness. So I notch a lot of that out and bring some of it back in wider. And then I'm doing a super high 27K just to really open up the top end.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time.
And then because all that high frequency adding brings out more de-essing, I'm tamping back those same kind of ranges again. This is a little bit higher of a notch at 5.6.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun. I'm posted on the north.
If you can really hear how much more attack it has without this, I'm posted
on the north side. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list.
So that's kind of a trick I like. I'll really brighten up the top end, and then I'll take a de-esser and I'll make sure that any of those harsh frequencies that are happening up there get really reduced, so that you get this really nice bright vocal, but you don't get a harsh vocal. I think half of what really makes one of the important things in making a vocal sound great is the de-esser, for sure. That sets people apart. Now, in the original mix that I did, I added 3 different vocal effects. The first one I added was this Echo Boy. It's really almost like a slap delay. It's kind of like a spreader slap mixed into one. I'll let you hear it.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size.
Okay. And then the last 2.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big.
Oh, I didn't use that. Then this one.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like.
All right, so that's that. Let's get into more Q&A. I say let's get into a little bit more creative stuff. Okay. Thomas asks, if you get songs to mix and listen for the first time, do you make notes of ideas, issues, and what goes on in your head while listening? Excellent question. Yes. So I always want to get a rough mix from the artist or the producer or the client before I mix, and usually I'll listen to the rough mix 3, 4, 5, 6 times through before I begin mixing, because I want to get an idea I want to get a picture in my head of where I want to take that song. The rough mix gives me a snapshot of, okay, this is the general idea that they have of where they want to go with it. Now I can sit and listen and really shape in my mind where I think I'm going to take it. And honestly, that doesn't always mean that your finish line is going to sound like that, but it helps you to kind of, before I start pulling up random faders that mean nothing to me, I want to have an idea of the song I'm mixing, and that does that for me. So that when I do start mixing and I pull up only the kick drum or only the drums, the rest of the song is playing in my head. Like, I already have an idea of, okay, this rhythm goes, when I pull up the bass line, I could basically already hum along with it. I know the basics of it. So from a creative standpoint, yeah, I think you, as a mixer, you want to understand the song that you're mixing before you really go after it. But don't necessarily let the rough mix influence where you are taking it. If you have a great direction that you're really feeling and you think and this is the one, man, go with your gut. I always say go with your gut. Okay, I'm in. How do you organize, plan, and prioritize your workload? I think these are going to be like 3 questions all together. So I'm going to read these 3 from Amin, Jerry, and Chris. Amin, how do you organize, plan, and prioritize your workload? Jerry, quick template setup plugins that should be on every channel and in what order outside of gain plugin. and Chris. I would really like to see the prep and file management side of your workflow, from the intake of tracks, proper bouncing. Oh, I can't. Ooh, that's like an entire audio school online tutorial right there. Maybe I'll do one of those sometime. You know, organization. Here's probably the best way that I can show this quickly. So this this mix is kind of basically how I create stuff. If I have an 808, it's at the top, and then followed by my drums from low frequencies on up, usually kicks, like all kicks, and then all snares, claps, snaps, and then all hi-hats and shakers, and then all other percussion, cymbals, crashes, congas, tambourines, whatever it is. After all the percussion, if there's a bass line, like a live bass or a sub bass or something, it would go next. There isn't one here. That's the 808, fills that role. So after the drums, I have all of the keys. And if you notice, I'm color coding all of these. So as I'm looking at my session as a mixer, I don't have to think at all. I glance and the colors tell me what it is, because I tend to color the same things the same over and over, and where in the song I am. So, you know, I mean, I can pretty much tell, okay, this is a hook, so these are the hooks. So you see, it's a multi-layered strategy of organization between really simple labeling, 808, kick, snare, stick, clap, hat, open hat, verse keys, intro. You know, you get it. BV, LV. Super simple labeling, strip silencing, color coding well, routing well. You see, I don't do a lot of routing. A lot of people, I get mixes in, and the amount of routing that I see people doing from this aux into that aux and combining these into those, and I guess if it works for you, that's totally cool. I think one of the beauties of creating music and mixing and any of the creative processes is that everybody gets to their results in a different way. And as long as you get to a result that you and other people love, then that's all that really matters. But for me, the less I have to think about the technical stuff, the better I am. And that means laying out my screen in the most simple way possible. So I have an ultra wide screen, and the left side is my mix window, and the right side is my faders window. I guess this is the arrange window. And you see the effects are below all of the tracks, and then it's the master, and then I have my rough mix underneath the master fader. These are just for the chamber thing. I wouldn't normally have these in here. And then, so that's pretty much, you know, how I tend to organize things. If I get a stereo track that isn't actually stereo, I'll monoize it. There's this really great plugin called Stereo Monoizer. So cool. So all you do is drop your files into here, hit analyze, and it tells you which ones are stereo files that actually only are mono files. And then if you hit process, it'll split those apart for you automatically and resave them to the same folder or a new folder if you want. And so before I start any mix, I stereo monoize any tracks that need it. Cuts down on processing and storage and the whole nine. And you know, then I listen to the rough mix, and you know, so I think that's probably answered most of the question. Template setup. The only kind of template that I have is that I usually set up 4 to 6 auxes. On this mix was only 4, but lately I've been setting up more like 6, and I'll just, these are my effects. I keep them at the end of my thing right in front of the master fader. And it's just bus 1, 2, bus 3 and 4, bus 5, 6, bus 7 and 8. And if I had 2 more, it'd be bus 9, 10, bus 11 and 12. Super easy to remember. I can put anything on those. It doesn't have to be people. I see people naming auxes like verb, delay. You know, I guess if that works for you. I try not to pick the effects I'm going to use for a song until I'm mixing that song, because I don't want to have any preconceived notions of what I think works best for that. You know, we all have preconceived notions. You take them everywhere you go, but the more you can kind of be aware of and sidestep them, the better. So that's one of the ones that I sidestep. Okay. James McFadden. How are you EQing and or compressing, distorting your effects returns typically? Any tips or cool effects chains you could divulge would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So, James, that's an interesting question. Hang on. Okay. I can show it with this. Oh, I'm already doing it with this. So, on this mix, I'm using the Verb Suite Classic. That looks like the long plate. But so I have a really bright plate, right? See, I'm even boosting the high end here. See if I can get some audio going on this plate. Give me a second. Okay. All right.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick.
Okay, it's a really bright reverb, but I don't want the S's flooding the reverb. So what I'm doing here is I'm de-essing what is sent into the reverb. So it feeds out of the lead vocal into here, gets de-essed, knocking back all of the harsh high frequencies, but leaving all of the natural high frequencies. And that leaves my reverb more open and present, but it knocks back the S's. So when I bypass this, listen for how much more of the S's carry through into the reverb compared to when it's engaged and knocking back all of the high frequencies.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on.
Did you hear that reverb just darken up a little bit? You don't want all that, the harsh mid-range carrying through your reverb, because that's just going to cloud up your lead vocal. So, you know, one other cool thing that I like to do, let's see if I can show you quickly, is I like to do weird things, like if I'm gonna have a vocal delay, then I may format down the vocal into it before I put the delay on it. Doesn't always work, and sometimes it's just outcooling yourself, you know. Sometimes you don't need all the gimmicks, you just need some solid whatever it is. But just for, you know, this works every once in a while, so I'll show it to you.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time.
So there's a couple cool, interesting things that I do to tailor effects. You know, I also find that some effects have their own built-in tailoring, like Echo Boy. I'll shape it as I go. And a lot of the reverbs, I'll shape the natural. I'll use the EQ built in to either filter it or make it brighter or whatever. So, you know, I find something that's close and then I modify from there. Okay, so switching gears. I wanted to tell a story about 4 of the craziest days of my younger career. Actually, 4 of the craziest days of my life, bar none, quite frankly. When I got a call to mix Public Enemy, and then I had Aretha Franklin booked. I had a remix for Aretha Franklin booked 3 days later. So I get this call from Tony Prendat, who was an old friend. I used to work with him at Soundtrack Recording in New York City. And he called me up and he's like, Ken, are you free tonight? I was like, yeah, of course. So he said, come down to Hit Factory and mix a song for Public Enemy. They're finishing up an album. The album was He Got Game. It was a movie soundtrack and ended up going gold. And Tony said, come down. They need somebody to mix one song. You're the guy. So I threw my racks into my truck. At the time, I used to carry a 16 space and a 12 space rack filled with gear, plus speakers, plus my guitar, usually plus a couple other interesting, weird things. Because you just never know, and you want to walk in looking like a baller, so you got to have racks wheeled in for you. Anyway, so I go down to mix this one Public Enemy song at like 11 o'clock at night, and where were we? We were at Sony, and I think we started in Sony Studio A, which I believe was a Neve, and I mixed the first song there. And they heard the mix. Hank Shockley was the A&R guy, and he's also in Public Enemy, one of the main producers. And Hank heard the first mix, and he was like, so can you stick around and mix one more for us? And I'm like, yeah, sure, of course I can. So I ended up moving from A to B. Maybe B had the Neve. And I ended up mixing 2 more songs in another studio. So after the second one, they're like, can you mix one more? Absolutely. And keep in mind, I started at 11 o'clock at night, and I had probably been up all day. So here I am now after 2 mixes, no sleep, no breaks. I go into a third mix. And, it's all long since daylight. It's already probably into the next evening. Third mix, I got a 4th mix after that and a 5th mix after that. And I moved rooms a 3rd time to mix the 4th and 5th. Moved downstairs to studio, can't remember, but it had an old SSL E series with a patchable Neve mix bus. So you could determine whether the Neve mix bus sounded better than the SSL mix bus, and the Neve mix bus won. So long story short, I got called for one Public Enemy song, and I ended up mixing 5 in a row with no breaks, no, almost, no, I didn't have any naps, anything. I ended up working 67 hours straight. And after that stretch of 5 songs, I got a hotel room at the seediest dump of a hotel room right down the street, slept for 6 hours, woke up, and did an 18-hour session for a remix for Aretha Franklin, A Rose is Still a Rose. And then I think I went home and slept for a day and a half. It was that was the worst thing I had ever put my body through to this day. I do not recommend it at all. Super painful. But there are many positives. The positives are I made more money in 4 days than I had ever made in my entire life to that date. And that was super cool. I worked with Public Enemy, who was a super bucket lister. I don't think I could have done those hours if it wasn't a group that I was super excited about. Flavor Flav was walking around with the big clock, and Chuck D wasn't there, but I had worked with Chuck D before. But I saw Flav there, and it was just crazy to think, like, growing up listening to these guys, and then now I get to mix for them was really insane. Same with Aretha Franklin. I didn't ever actually meet Aretha. It was just a remix. But we ended up spending all day, night tracking and then mixing the remix for A Rose is Still a Rose, which I think was a platinum single. My studio tips, a lot of people wear staying up days straight and, doing crazy hours as a badge of honor. I certainly did for many, many years. And I don't think I would honestly be where I'm at if I didn't do all of the insane, crazy sessions that I did. But I also almost didn't live through that. So I would caution you to be careful with how hard you push your body. I think, especially for creatives, sleep is the most important thing. And water. Drink so much water. It makes you feel better. Okay. Enough story time. I'm going to do a lightning round of Q&A. and see how many of these I can get through. Okay. John H. asks, let's see. Hey, Ken, how much production has been done on the stems that you are using during your sprint mix on your video show? So I'm going to do a sprint mix in maybe 6 or 10 minutes. I don't know. The sprint mix, usually I stem out the song. So I'll mix the song to completion, and then I'll usually stem it out. And I may leave some stuff off, but the Jedi level even is, it's more about balances than it is about plugins. So if you can balance 32 stems in 10 minutes and make it sound like a song and make every transition work, then man, I would call that Jedi level. So with the sprint mixes, the thing behind the sprint mixes is really to hone your listening skills and your decision-making skills and how well you balance things. And the way I set up the sprint mixes is level 1 to level 6. Level 6 is Jedi level. If you can do that, you can fuck with me. So, okay. This is not lightning round. That was Kevin, do you mix with compression on your stereo bus? Probably the question is more like, when do you put compression on your stereo bus, which I think is usually 50 to 80% into my mix. I try and get things sounding mostly the way I want them. The really important compressor for me is the Manley Varimu, because it just glues things together. I use it super, super slow, and it's just the glue that everything needs. Derek, do you EQ vocals while tracking, and what mic should you use to track vocals? Okay. Yes, I EQ vocals while tracking. My EQ is the Kush Clariphonic, the analog hardware version. So my vocal chain is a Groove Tubes Viper mic pre, all tube, into a Thermionic Culture, the Phoenix all tube Varimu compressor, into the Clariphonic, the Kush Clariphonic, which brightens up the top end, and maybe sometimes I'll add a touch of mid. So even the beautiful open C800, I'm adding more EQ when I record. And microphones, of course, the better the mic, the better the vocal usually. But some people just sound great on an SM58 or a 57. That all depends. Okay. TC asks, how do you properly EQ all of your sounds for the mix? Okay, this is a great question, TC, because the answer is that most tracks don't get any processing if they're decently recorded, decently produced, decently thought out, decently executed. Especially since nowadays so many things come out of a box already sounding amazing. Things need less and less treatment during the mix. It's more and more about balances and finding the mood and the feeling that you want that mix to give you. Not the sonics and how well you balance everything. And that's the wrong way to think about it. The way I think about mixing is, how does it make me feel? I'm always worried about that. Okay. So Marcus Manderson, how do I get my music to the right people or improve marketing? Man, I think that's different for everybody, but if you're an artist, I think you create high quality songs, the best that you can. You don't put anything out until you have something really viable, and then you start putting songs out like once every 2 months, every 6 weeks, promoting them, working for the next 6 weeks on coming up with another banger, and just feed the beast and try and do your best with networking and promotion and stuff. And when you have kind of a critical mass of listeners, that's when you start going to other people and getting them interested in your stuff. And it's so hard to even get there, but I mean, there's just so many people doing this. If you got to accomplish important things on your own before other important people are going to give up their time to help you get to your next level. So I think that's networking and hustle and being super respectful and not squandering your contacts when you get it. I think my friend Leo just dropped some advice, which was, if you get an A&R guy's contact, don't reach out to him until you have the exact right thing that they want. If you get an artist's contact and you don't have anything for them, man, spend a week and cook up some fire for them. You may waste that week, but maybe that work will go somewhere else and help you in some other way. So I think that's my main, I mean, God, I could talk for all night about how to get your music out there. It's a lot of luck. Sometimes it's spending a lot of money or the right money. Sometimes it's, you just catch a feature on the right thing, or you catch the right sync. I mean, for us in Des Rocksland, it was a lot of the sync world helped us tremendously. I mean, he tours relentlessly until the COVID outbreak, but I mean, we have absolutely crushed in Syncland with Des Rocks, which has helped the touring and the fan base and the streaming and everything else. So I think you have to find where your lanes fit the best, but you need to, and maybe you already have, I'm not saying you haven't, I don't know. You need to accomplish things that look important and sound great before you go looking for the great people to work with you. You gotta give them something. You gotta feed them the red meat. You can't tell them. You're never, ever, ever going to convince somebody verbally why they should like something. Ever. And when you play something, don't set it up for them. Don't give them this long, you're about to hear blah, 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 because they're thinking, shut the fuck up and hit play. Let me decide whether I love this, because you're not going to talk me into whether or not I love this. Only the music is going to do that. So I think that's the best lesson that so many people sidestep. It's such an easy thing, like you got to have the music first, and what the fuck does that mean even? But I think a lot of people put stuff out before they're really ready. So, spend more time making great music and less time thinking about how many people are going to hear it. Okay, so I think I'm going to move to sprint mixing now. Where is... let's see. Okay, so again, I mentioned that the sprint mix tonight is going to be the song I mixed for Gringo the MC. It's called Northside. The recording engineer was Chris Howard, and he owns a studio called Wave House. Boom, boom, Sprint Jedi. I hope this is it. And I think Hennedy is the producer on it. So big shout out to Chris and Gringo. I fucking love this song. Okay. So for those who don't know what the sprint mixes are, I'm going to mix this song in 10 minutes. Now, I've already done a full mix of this, and then just kind of stem that out. And the full mix took probably 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours. I don't really remember. And now I'm just going to set the faders to 0. I already know what the song sounds like. I've already mixed it. And I'm just going to go faders down to finished in 10 minutes, see how close to a finished song I can make it. And the way I have these sprint mixes set up is level 1. If you've never mixed before, level 1 is where you need to be. That is your perfect sweet spot. You have 4 stems. You get 10 minutes to make 4 stems sound like a record. It's a great way to get your feet wet. Level 2 is a different challenge. Level 3, etc. So you can work your mixing skills up over time. They're available at Audio School Online. I'm going to be putting out a bunch of these this year, but I think I have 3 sprint mixes up on Audio School Online right now. So before I start this one, please do me a favor and like and subscribe the YouTube channel, and tell your friends about the broadcast. Try and I'm going to be broadcasting again Wednesday at 8 o'clock. This is going to be a normal thing during the quarantine, which I think we're going to be indoors for a really long time. So as long as we're indoors and I can't have clients around, I'm going to be broadcasting. So get your questions in early so I can have more time to organize them and get you guys great examples and show you stuff on screen more, etc., etc. I really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight, and I really hope we can, foster a sense of community. I mean, this is I'm in the ground zero of something that I have never seen in my entire lifetime. This is really unique, and I'm not scared of it because I'm super locked down, and I'm not going to get it, but I'm scared for my country and I'm scared for the world, and I don't know where we go from here, but let's studio the quarantine together, and I'm going to mix Northside. So take care. Okay, so the other thing, if you don't know about sprint mixing, is I set the clock. So there's going to be 10 minutes on the clock right there, and I'm just going to keep time with my phone. And I'm also going to give myself some more interesting lighting to fuck with while I'm... boom. Here we go. Death metal mode. Alright, we're going to go in death metal mode for some fucking smooth trap music. Love it. Alright, folks. 10 minutes. Start. There we go. 10 minutes on the clock.
My best to come, and I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted. It's fun time, shorty know I like her slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on the north side. Got 4,000 ride dick, got a couple thousand who fan. I can tell you about me all day, but you probably never understand. I can never tell my location, but you still gon' know where I am. Posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. Laying something dripping like the dishes. They all up in my face, I tell them give me 50 inches. Yeah, and I'm 19 on 60 some. I'm whipping hard as I can hold. They sending shots, but they never hitting. They still be talking like Rambo. Fuck around with the fuck around, gon' fuck around and get canceled. Everybody side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like her slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on the not private side. So come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like her slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like them slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, you can check it. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side. I ain't south or east or west. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side. I ain't south or east or west. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side. I ain't south or east or west. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side. I ain't south or east or west, you could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side. I ain't south or east or west, you could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side. I ain't south or east or west, you could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and I'm posted on the north side. Little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side.
Okay, this yellow lead vocal is one that I did not process at all. Came completely raw from the session. The other vocals are somewhat processed, but no effects. This is just completely raw as it was given to me.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east, so I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east, so I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big, I'm sipping drink. I'm sipping on some big drink. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like it slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on the not probably looking different. The problem with these people is they never mind their business. I probably pull a blade and something dripping like the dishes. They all up in my face, I tell them give me 50 inches. Yeah, and I'm 19, I'm 60 something. I'm whipping hard as I can, ho. Not probably looking different. The problem with these people, I ain't south or east or west, you could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but big drink. It's fun time, shorty. Next to get rich and I doubt it, I met him and that ain't the way that it's looking. I'm popping regardless, I be heartless. Made some mistakes and I tell myself fuck it. Don't even matter, the fuck is the matter, I gotta forget it to get me a budget. Practically dying as long as you live and proceed with precision, avoid the collision. See the impossible rep where you at and don't ever forget what you learned. South or east or west, you could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on the north side. North side. One time, yeah, I'm posted on the one time, yeah, I'm posted on the north. posted on the Northside.
I probably shouldn't be doing this. Just playing right now. Where is it? Here it goes. Oh, no.
Posted on the north side, 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 posted on the north. Nothing on my wish list, but one time, yeah, I'm posted on the north side. Running it up while I'm stepping. The fuck is the matter? I gotta forget it again. The north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on the power high, be pushing. Fuck it, don't even matter. The fuck is the matter? I gotta forget it to get me a budget. Practically dying as long as you live in.
All right, that's it. Clock is done. 10 minutes, start to finish. So I'm gonna end tonight's broadcast playing this down. I may answer some more questions. Shut this thing off. Hang on. There you go. I'm just going to play this final mix down and let you guys hear it out. I'm going to try and answer some more questions that I didn't get to tonight on my Instagram. So follow me on Instagram at Ken Lewis Producer and my Facebook at /Ken Lewis. I'm going to probably do some Facebook stories too. Get your questions in for Wednesday's broadcast. So sorry to anybody I didn't get to, but man, that was a lot to get through. So without further ado, here is the Jedi Sprint mix of Northside by Gringo the MC.
I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on the now that probably looking different. The problem with these people is they never mind their business. I probably pull a blade and something dripping like the dishes. They all up in my face, I tell them give me 50 inches. Yeah, and I'm 19, I'm 60 something. I'm whipping hard as I can hold. They sending shots, but they never hitting. They still be talking like Rambo. Fuck around with the fuck around, you gon' fuck around and get cancer. Everybody want war with us, but we stocking up on that ammo. I got a plan to execute plans. I got 150 Q stands. Got 4,000 ride dick. Got a couple thousand who fan. I can tell you about me all day, but you probably never understand. I can never tell my location, but you still gon' know where I am. I'm on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, I ain't south or east or west. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like 'em slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on the running it up while I'm stepping. The power of jogging and jugging. The power of jigging and driving. The power how I be pushing. Wrote it to live it and did it to say that we did it. And now they be treating me crooked. They say they next to get rich and I doubt it. I met them and that ain't the way that it's looking. I'm popping regardless, I be heartless. Made some mistakes and I told myself fuck it. Don't even matter, the fuck is the matter? I gotta forget it to get me a budget. Practically dying as long as you live and proceed with precision. Avoid the collision. Achieve the impossible, rep where you at and don't ever forget what you learned. You could check the GPS, I'm up. If ever I feel stressed, I just roll a little session up. My enemies impressed, as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. time I'm posted on the north side. So come slide, I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like them slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list, but one time, yeah, I'm